What's the difference between a project and a product? You'll often hear people talk about a shift to product thinking, or how organizations should be product-led, but we often gloss over the practical details of how this actually plays out for a business that's perhaps used to thinking in projects. So let's quickly touch on what we mean by project. If we use a simple dictionary definition, we would say a project is an individual or collaborative enterprise that is carefully planned to achieve a particular aim. And this pretty well sums up what we mean. But when we're talking about projects in the business sense, there are some particular things that tend to be implied. A project, as well as having a particular aim, tends to be bounded by a particular budget and an accompanying timeline. You'll often hear this referred to as scope, cost, and time. Generally speaking, the concept of project management is about optimizing these factors, trying to achieve as much of our scope as possible in the shortest time for the lowest cost. If you're trying to build a house, you know what you need to have, and you want to try to get it built before you run out of money and within an agreed timeline. Also important to note is that the cost of change for a house is very high. Once you've started laying bricks and mortar, tearing it down to make significant changes is costly, so you generally want to get the plan right before you start building. This is why you'll generally plan the work at a fairly detailed level. You'll figure out how much you need to spend, how long it will take, and then you'll work through that plan without significant deviation. If the scope of the plan changes, well, we might need to adjust the budget, or if the budget shrinks, we might have to adjust the timeline. And this can be a really effective way of managing a complicated problem, just so long as we know generally what we need to build and can predict the work required to achieve it. So why would you care about product over a project? Well, if you're working on something more complex, with many unknown unknowns, it can become exceedingly difficult to predict the work that is required, or even the outcome that you're looking for. Writing music, creating a work of art, building a new software product, these are activities with more unknowns than knowns, where building a detailed plan becomes near impossible. And this of course means that trying to manage a project towards a specific aim with an accompanying plan and budget can become problematic. Many software projects have failed because we built exactly what we thought we needed, only for customers to hate it. Many more will fail because by the time the project is launched, something has changed in the market or a competitor has outdone us. Thankfully, the cost of change in this kind of work is low. Rewriting code or changing digital designs involves no physical waste, so we can approach this very differently. Product as an idea is all about shifting our thinking when working in these sorts of highly emergent types of work, where we rely on customer feedback and constant adaptation in order to build the right thing. A product does not have a single aim. It doesn't have a fixed endpoint or scope. It doesn't even have a particular budget or a timeline. The thing that defines a product is that it's long-lived, evolving, and continues to add value and generate revenue as its functionality grows. Unlike the house that can be built, sold, and essentially forgotten about, a digital product like a music streaming service is something that people might continue to use and pay for over time. So a banking platform, a web browser, a social media service, these are all products that people will continue to use so long as their needs are served. And they can continue to generate revenue from both new and existing customers by adding value over time. So by moving away from project thinking, where we spend years trying to build the perfect project, only to move on from it once it's out the door, instead we look at a product as an ongoing value proposition. So we fund teams to work for an undetermined period, building and growing the product to attract more customers. Our budget is simply the monthly or yearly cost of those teams, not a fixed dollar value that will one day run out, but a known expense that we hope to recoup via the product. So we have no fixed outcome because each small release, of which there should be many throughout the year, give us a chance to take feedback from our customers and decide what to build next. And our timeline becomes adaptive. For as long as we're continuing to add valuable features that attract customers, we can continue to invest. Once we reach a point where that return starts to shrink and the cost of our new development starts to look like a low value proposition, then we might think about that decision of scaling back development and focusing on maintaining the product. So to sum up, a project generally refers to a time-bound plan to achieve a known outcome. This can be great for building complicated physical items where the cost of change is high. We build a plan and execute it while trying to manage time, cost, and scope. While products are long-lived, generally non-physical platforms or services where the cost of change is low and unknowns are to be expected. We understand our customer, work in small cycles getting feedback along the way. We fund this process for as long as it makes sense to do so, with no fixed time or total budget constraint beyond the next release cycle. So if you're building houses or selling physical widgets, projects can still be a great way to manage your work. But if you're working on a complex software product or a long-lived service or digital platform, chances are you should be trying to shift towards product thinking so you can better respond to change and deliver features that continue to attract and retain customers. Good luck on that journey.